I'm Christy Hartman. Welcome back to my channel. I was inspired by Patricia of pmartiststudio to alter some of my existing scrapbooking papers. And then I decided to make some tags out of them. These are the tags that I've altered. Some of them you can still see some of the scrapbooking paper behind all of the alterations that I've done. These you can see. These definitely. I love this one. This one in particular, you can see the skeletons through it. This one, you can see the skeleton faces through it. And some of them I just obliterated entirely. This one, there's nothing. You can see nothing through that. So let's get started. Let me show you how I did this. My channel. I've been watching Patricia and Mariah of pmartiststudio alter scrapbooking papers. And I'm going to use all of these kind of fun, interesting scrapbooking papers. Let me fan them out here for you. Using them and altering them to make my tags. We're going to use the gel plate. I'm using Quin Magenta in the fluid acrylic line that Golden has. I'm actually trying to neutralize this paint color. Patricia mentioned that you should use translucent paint colors in order to keep everything very transparent and translucent on these cards. And I found that was very true. And as you'll see, I do have, and I would call it sporadic success where that was concerned. I found that I needed to brayer out my paint very, very thin so as to keep them more on the transparent side. You will see that I repeat my paint colors frequently as I am building the layers up on these cards. My main goal is just simply to get some paint down on the paper so I can build up the layers using some open paint, which will come later on. I'm not going to give you a list of the paint colors in the title for the rest of this video unless I think that you just can't see it. You will also see that I simply am working to get as much paint on these backgrounds as I can while hoping to keep them somewhat translucent, which I said earlier was limited success. And perhaps if I had laid the cards down, each one, I would have had more success, but I didn't. I was trying to use up the paint that I had on my plate and still develop an interesting colored background. Some of these, the background show through very nicely. Some of them not so much. And you'll see that here in just a few minutes. I will say that when Patricia does this in her video, or in she and Mariah's stream, I guess I should say, she makes it look a lot easier than it really is. I actually found that this was somewhat difficult to keep everything as translucent as possible. Another thing that you should notice is that I rarely cleaned my plate off in this process. I figured that I wasn't working to develop pure color. Consequently, there was no reason to clean off my plate in between each paint application. Needless to say, I'm not entirely sure I would ever be able to replicate some of these paint colors. I actually really liked this combination. This bluish purplish color was, I thought, lovely. Here I'm going over the top of the red one because I felt it needed a little something extra. And then I go over the top of these crows, and in the process I kind of obliterated them. Here we're going to get kind of an interesting green. At this point in time, I decide that I'm going to switch to my open paint. I definitely have more success keeping my layers very translucent using my open paint. I am a great lover of using open paint. Now, let me preface that by saying I live in a very dry climate, and I also have the luxury of allowing my paints to dry as I need to use the open paints. Although I will say that on these tags, most of my open paints dried within an overnight time period. Again, I do not clean this plate off in between each subsequent layer, and I just continue building layer upon layer using some pmartiststudio stencils, mostly Walter's Web, to add texture and some additional interest to the fronts of these tags. Here you see me using chromium green, which is actually a fairly opaque paint color. But because I'm using it through the Walter's Web stencil, it's only adding a little bit of paint to the fronts of these tags. The nice thing about using the open paint is that I can just continue working until I've removed as much of that paint as I possibly can through the stencil before I remove the stencil. Because that's green on green, you see very little of the Walter's Web texture on there. Here I'm just removing sections of paint. Now I've removed the stencil, and I'm just going to use that entire area to add to the fronts of these tags. Bone Black went right over the top of all of that paint that I had on there, and because it was open, it just worked together with the Bone Black that I added. So the green and the black just mixed together. Believe me, that is the beauty of using open paints to some degree. There's lots of other advantages as well, but that is definitely one of the advantages. Now here I'm trying to remove as much of that paint around that tag as I possibly can. And I get some off, not a lot. We're back to mixing Bone Black with the chromium green, and because Bone Black is a very translucent color, I'm able to increase the translucency on that chromium green that I wouldn't have been able to do unless I had mixed those two paint colors together, unless I was using a medium. I love this tag. I kind of really love the way that these tags blend the scrapbooking paper backgrounds with the altered paint backgrounds that I've added to it. I just think that it was a brilliant idea of Patricia and Mariah's to do, and I really am thoroughly enjoying this. Again, didn't even add paint to that. I just brayered out what was left on my plate to try and add it to this tag. I didn't get a lot on there, but I got some. I'm going to darken up this pyrrole red with a little bit of bone black. Again, pyrrole red tends to be a more opaque color, so adding the bone black to it and this nickel azo gold will just increase the translucency of the pyrrole red. Also makes for a lovely paint color. This is another tag that I just really love. I love how those skulls show through. I'm going to clean off around the outside of that tag as much as I possibly can. And I'll see if I can pull off any more of it. I got a little bit. Brayered out what was on my plate as well as what was on the brayer. I have not been cleaning off my brayer. Made for interesting skeletons. Bone black again. I've had this bone black for quite a while, and now I'm going to actually use this, I think this is a red iron oxide, which is not an open paint, but mixed with the bone black and then the fluid acrylic, it will make it dry quicker. I've not used bone black, although I've had it for a long time. I have not used it as much recently until watching Patricia use some of her bone black. And then I thought, well, I should get mine out. It's actually a very fun paint color. Yeah, I love that tag. In the next video, you're going to see me add some additional embellishments and some more interest to the tags, some of which I actually do off camera because I continue this gel printing session for quite a while and add a little bit of iridescent gold to some of these tags as well, which I don't show on camera, but I think you get the general idea. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me a comment. I always love to hear from you, and I'll see you in my next video.